Study Session 8 Political Institutions 1 Introduction. In this study session, you will learn about another way Africans maintain their societies and how behaviors are regulated in the society. One basic way the society is maintained is through the use of power and authority to make members of the society conform to societal expectations. This approach to the maintenance of the society is embedded in the political institutions. Although the political institutions cannot be totally separated from the legal institutions, which we will treat in the next session, the political institutions, apart from the use of power and authority, also provide a means for making group decisions and administering programs. Learning outcomes. After studying this study session, you should be able to 1. Define and use correctly all of the keywords printed in bold. 2. Identify indigenous political systems in Africa. 3. Discuss at least 3 notable kingdoms in the African continent. The meaning of political institutions and African political systems. What are political organizations? Political institutions are organizations that provide political representation for people in the society. Political institutions consist of recognized structures, rules, and principles of maintaining social order by a duly authorized machinery in human communities. The form of political organization common in pre-colonial Africa is monarchical rule, a political system in which a representative from one family controls the government and power is passed on through that family from generation to generation. African indigenous political systems, typology and critique. Africans depend on leaders who can coordinate the daily activities of the society. While some leadership positions are hereditary, some others are attained through responsible acts or conduct. It should, however, be noted that leadership roles differ from one society to another. Some African societies have full-time permanent leaders with real authority to make important decisions for their communities, while some others have temporary leaders who are constituted as the need arises. In Africa, leaders could either be kings, queens, or chiefs. Sometimes there is an advisory board as well, but there were no professional administrators. While some African countries operated as chiefdoms or kingdoms, in which members of society are ranked relative to the head, some were run as states. For instance, Baganda and Buroyo communities in Uganda and ancient Egypt are examples of societies which operated as kingdoms. However, ancient Egypt eventually became a state with stratified social classes in terms of wealth, power, and prestige. In ancient Egypt, the political administration revolved largely around a single figure called Pharaoh. His people believed he was a living god. This status of divine kingship basically granted Pharaoh unlimited power and control over his subjects. Pharaoh's people did not own anything. Everything in the land belonged to Pharaoh. A number of people assisted Pharaoh in his political duties and carried out his decrees. Amongst these were priests and holy men. These priests and holy men were given preferential treatment above other people and were a kind of nobility in their own right. In the early years, the sons of Pharaoh and other close relatives acted as his principal advisors and assistants. The political structure of the ancient Egyptians involved other officials including viziers, the prime minister, army commanders, the principal officers, the minister of public works and tax collectors who report directly to the pharaoh. The land was divided into provinces called nomes. Each nome had a governor appointed by the king and responsible to the vizier. Just like the Egyptian pharaohs, most African kings are seen as divine or next to God. In Yoruba land, they are hailed as Alashe, Ekeji, Orisha, the commander, the next to the deity or God. Kings are known to be very powerful and autocratic. In pre-colonial Africa, kings can do and undo. They can forcefully take another man's wife, impose heavy taxation on their subjects, have as many slaves as they desired, and promote the practice of human sacrifices. Historically, African kings have been documented to be major facilitators of the European slave trade. Slavery and wars are endemic aspects of African politics. Before Europeans came to Africa, African kings, elites, and merchants have been involved in the enslavement of their own people to increase their wealth and prestige. However, European merchants and royal officials were able to tap into existing routes, markets, and institutions to intensify enslavement in Africa. The incessant wars promoted the importance of the military and made the sale of captives into the slave trade an extension of the politics of regions of Africa. For example, in the area called Gold Coast, the empire of Ashanti rose to prominence in the period of the slave trade. Although gold continued to be a major item of export, by the end of the 17th century, the value of slaves made up almost 2/3 of Ashanti's trade. African kingdoms, structures, and incorporation in new state. The African continent has a number of pre-colonial kingdoms headed by kings, queens, or chiefs that range in size and influence. Among the popular pre-colonial African kingdoms, the Kingdom of Axum, the Kingdom of Mali, the Ethiopian Kingdom, the Ashanti Kingdom, the Songhai Kingdom, the Nupe Kingdom, the Benin Kingdom, and so on. In the following sections, we will discuss some of these kingdoms briefly. The northern part of the African continent constitutes countries such as Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, and Western Sahara. We will take a brief look at a kingdom in Tunisia. Hussaini Dynasty, Tunisia. Hussaini Dynasty, Tunisia. The Hussaini dynasty replaced the Muradid dynasty in 1905. Kings known as Beys ruled in the kingdom with succession to the throne determined by age. That is, the oldest member of the dynasty becomes Bey. The heir apparent to the Bey held the title Bey al-Mahala. Since October 2006, the current head of the dynasty is Prince Mohammed Bey, the grandson of Mohammed van Nasser. Every tribe in a country has a political history that originates from the rise and fall of kingdoms. Do you agree with this? This statement is so true because no country just came into existence without a past of the rise and fall of a kingdom or kingdoms. Tribes have stories of their history. Although some stories are quite dramatic, others may just be simple. Notable kingdoms in West Africa. The history of West Africa consists of the rise and fall of many kingdoms. Prominent kingdoms among these are the Benin Kingdom, the Oyo Empire, the Ashanti Kingdom, the Nupe Kingdom, and numerous others. We will now take a brief look at the Kingdom of Ghana, a region formerly referred to as the Gold Coast, and the Oyo Empire in Nigeria. The Empire of Ghana. The Ghana Empire is one of the earliest known kingdoms in West Africa. Historians believe that the Kingdom of Ghana probably began under the leadership of a great king named Dingasise. The Ghana Kingdom was headed by a king who was ably assisted by a council of elders. The kingdom was divided into districts headed by a district leader. The district leaders judiciously guided each of their districts. The Ghana Kingdom had laws that people mostly obeyed. The trade in salt and gold played a remarkable role in the formation of the Ghana Kingdom. Ghana never owned gold mines or salt mines, but because it was in the middle of the trade between the salt mines of kingdoms in the North Sahara Desert and the gold mines of kingdoms to the south, Ghana prospered by controlling the trade routes. Ghana traded gold with the kingdoms to the north for salt, and traded salt with the kingdoms in the south for gold. As trade increased, Ghana's rulers gained power. Ghana's rulers made money by forcing traders to pay taxes. The rulers of Ghana used the wealth from their trading, especially those two products, to build a powerful empire. Additional sources of wealth and trade included wheat, sheep, cattle, honey, leather, cloth, and tassels made from golden thread. As more and more traders braved the trans-Sahara trade routes, bringing spices and silks to Ghana and taking gold in trade, the Kingdom of Ghana flourished. Ghana and other West African kingdoms soon became collectively known as the Gold Coast. The Oyo Empire. The Oyo Kingdom. Our discussion on the Oyo Kingdom will be largely based on the materials compiled by Wikipedia, an internet source. You could go to the site and read a detailed version of the abridged form presented below. The Oyo Kingdom is one of the largest empires in West Africa. Oral history has it that the Oyo Kingdom originated through a Yoruba prince named Oromiyan, the son of Oduduwa. Oromiyan, the first Oba, king of Oyo, was succeeded by Oba Ajaka, called Alaafin of Oyo. Ajaka was later deposed because he lacked Yoruba military virtue and allowed his sub-chiefs too much independence. During the 17th century, Oyo began a long stretch of growth, becoming a major empire. The Oyo Empire developed a highly sophisticated political structure to govern its territorial domains. The Alaafin of Oyo, the king, was the head of the empire and the supreme overlord of the people. Origins of civilization in Africa. Africa is believed to be the cradle of civilizations by historians. Civilization is believed to have originated from Egypt as well as Ethiopia. The Oyo Empire was not a hereditary monarchy, nor an absolute one. A group or council known as the Oyomesi were responsible for selecting the Alaafin. The Alaafin was not always directly related to his predecessor, although he has to be a descendant of the Oromiyan and to hail from the Ona Ishokun word, which is one of the three royal words. The Alaafin of Oyo appointed certain religious and government officials known as the Ilaris, who are usually eunuchs, to either do menial tasks, act as guards, or sometimes serve as messengers to the other world via sacrifice. The Oyomesi and the Yoruba Ogboni cult kept the Oba's power in check. If the Alaafin lost favor with the council or his headship is disapproved by the council, comprising of the Oyomesis and the Ogboni members, the Bashorun, one of the key chiefs in the kingdom, will present the Alaafin with an empty calabash, a parrot's egg, as a sign that he must commit suicide. This was the only way to remove the Alaafin because he could not be legally deposed. Notable kingdoms in East Africa. East Africa is a vast area encompassing the countries of Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Seychelles, and Comoros. East Africa has a rich history of kingdoms. The region is known to be home to one of the earliest known kingdoms in the world, known as Nubia Kingdom. Other kingdoms that developed in East Africa include Aksum, the Buganda Kingdom, Rwanda, and the Swahili coast city-states. For the purpose of our study in this section, we will consider the ancient Rwanda Kingdom. The Rwandan Kingdom. Rwanda has three major ethnic groups, namely Buhuti, Batusi, and Batwa. The country has a highly organized and centralized system of administration. The kingdom was presided over by a king referred to as Umwami in Rwandan language. Rwandan kings are mainly selected from the Inyiginya clan within the Tutsi subgroup. The power of the Umwami is nearly absolute. However, he was assisted by three main chiefs, namely a military chief who was responsible for the army, a cattle chief who oversaw all matters pertaining to cattle keeping, grazing, and settling related disputes, and a land chief who was responsible for agricultural land, produce, and related affairs. The chiefs were mainly from the Tutsi group, but most often the chief of land normally comes from the Hutu subgroup. Aside these three chiefs, the queen also played a significant role in the administration of the kingdom. The relationship between the king and the rest of the population was unequal. This inequality was sustained by an highly organized system called Ubuhaki, a clientelist kind of relationship between the landed elites and the ordinary subjects with little or no lands. With the exception of wars of conquest and expansion, pre-colonial Rwanda was largely peaceful. However, for about 20 generations, one Tutsi clan, the Inyiginya, dominated the political scene. Notable kingdoms in southern part of Africa. The southern part of Africa comprises of a number of countries, amidst which are Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Swaziland, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Angola, and the Republic of South Africa. We shall take a brief look at the Kingdom of Mutapa in Zimbabwe. The Kingdom of Mutapa, Zimbabwe. The Mutapa Kingdom stretched between the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers of southern Africa in the modern states of Zimbabwe and Mozambique. The Mutapa Kingdom dates back to sometime in the first half of the 15th century. According to oral tradition, the first Mwene king was a warrior prince named Nyansimba Mutota from the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. He was sent to find new sources of salt in the north. Prince Mutota found the salt among the Tavara, a Shona subdivision, who he conquered and then established a capital at Zivongombe by the Zambezi. When Mutota died, he was succeeded by Matope, who expanded the kingdom into an empire encompassing most of the lands between Tavara and the Indian Ocean. This expansion weakened the Tawa Kingdom, the southern Shona state, from which Mutota and his dynasty originated. Mwene Mutapa Matope's armies overran the kingdom of the Manyika as well as the coastal kingdoms of Kiteve and Madanda. By the time the Portuguese arrived on the coast of Mozambique, the Mutapa Kingdom was the premier Shona state in the region. Study Session Summary. In Study Session 8, you have learned that 1. Political institutions are organizations that provide political representation for people in the society. 2. The political institutions in Africa is monarchical in nature. They are operated either as kingdoms or state presided over by a queen, king, or chief. 3. In pre-colonial Africa, kings can be very brutal. They actually facilitated the European slave trade due to what they were gaining from it. 4. The African continent has a number of notable pre-colonial kingdoms, such as the Kingdom of Axum, the Kingdom of Mali, the Ethiopian Kingdom, the Ashanti Kingdom, the Shonga Kingdom, the Nupe Kingdom, the Benin Kingdom, amongst others. That ends Study Session 8. Thank you for listening.